Hello, welcome back to the Law of Attraction Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Keith. All right, today I have a question from a podcast listener. This is from Liz M, and I thought this would be a good topic to touch on. So, first of all, if you guys have any questions, keep sending them to me. The best way to reach out to me is to DM me at Law of Attraction Tribe on Instagram. I check all my messages. I like hearing from you guys. And I love getting recommendations for what you want to hear next. So here's the question from Liz. Hey, Stephanie, I was listening to your podcast today and heard you answering one of your listeners' questions. And I've had a manifestation question that I've been struggling with for a while. For background, I'm super into manifestation, but I've never heard anyone address the money question with a stay at home mom. I'm currently taking care of my babies full time. I want to manifest money for myself and for our family, of course, but I don't know if I should be focusing on manifesting money for me or my husband, who's currently bringing in the paychecks. I'm also struggling with maintaining my vibe with toddlers around. They are learning how to be humans, and I totally understand that, but the meltdowns are super hard to handle. I'm always thinking about how all of the meditating and visualizing I'm doing is being ruined by these little humans who don't understand. Love them to death, but it is hard to maintain a high vibration when you're constantly dealing with yelling, crying, screaming. LOL. And I don't have any family around and no childcare at the time, so that's not really an option. Stay at home mom problems. Okay, I love this question and it's so relevant in my life. I guess I probably should talk about this more because I am a stay at home mom. I have Alexis, who's 15, so she's independent and can take care of herself. But then I have Amelia and Aiden, who are 4 and 5. And I have built my business and everything I've been doing with the podcast and the app. I started when I had Amelia. Okay, so I had a newborn. Alexis was homeschooling at the time. Then Aiden comes along and he was a colicky baby. So much of my business, including writing my book and doing all of the things that you guys see on your end, this was all done while I was having a toddler and a newborn, and I was the caretaker. Okay. So, yes, I am married. My husband helps out a lot, but he also works full time. He does 12-hour shifts at the hospital. So, the days that he's working, we pretty much don't see him, or at least the kids don't, because they're in bed shortly after he gets home and they're in bed when he wakes up in the morning. So the days that he's home are great. He's very good with them, hands on. And then I have my mom who lives in the neighborhood, and she has been so helpful as well. But outside of that, we don't have childcare. I've never put my kids in daycare. We don't do babysitters or anything like that. And what's wild about this is I remember looking forward to when they start school and thinking, like, I'll finally have time to myself where I can focus on my business and have, like a whole day of recording and things like that. But now I have opted to homeschool. So they're going to be at home and we're making it work. It does get better as they get out of that infant and child or toddler stage where they can understand a little bit, they can do some things independently. So just remember, number one, this is a phase. It's not going to last forever. In fact, it goes by so quickly. And I used to get so pissed when people would say that because I was like, yeah, easy for you to say, well, I'm dealing with the dirty diapers and bottles and crying. But it really does. It flies by. And before you know it, it's like, oh my gosh, they're already supposed to go to school. Like, this is crazy. How did this happen? So just keep in mind, this is a phase. And the way that I feel like I've been very fortunate is that I had Alexis while I was like brand new in my career and was a working mom. And so, being that I had Amelia and Aiden 10 and 12 years later, I felt like I had more of an appreciation in how quickly the time goes by. And so I made a very conscious effort that I wanted to be as present as possible. And if that meant taking a step back in my business and maybe not having as much income as I could if I were working around the clock, I was totally okay with that. But at the end of the day, those are all just beliefs that we tell ourselves, and you can absolutely be successful, have money, manifest whether you have little kids or not, whether you have a lot of time to yourself or not. So let me get into the first part of the question, which was whether or not like you should be manifesting money from you or from your husband who is bringing in the paychecks. And this is so I've done this before. We all do it where you want to manifest more money, right? And immediately you start thinking about how it can happen. And it's like you have to take control of the situation and think, well, I have to manifest that my husband's going to get a raise or a better job or a bonus, or I have to manifest that somehow I'm going to, get this money. This is the problem. Drop the how. Because what happens is we try to take control of the situation and figure out the how. And what you're doing is narrowing the options available to work with. So there's an infinite number of opportunities available for you to make more money. And so immediately by going to it has to come this way or that way, you're narrowing all of those options down to the options that only you can predict and see. But when you think about some of the most incredible things you manifest, all of the incredible things that I've manifested, looking back, I couldn't have predicted the steps that would have taken place. There were so many things that were out of my control that were so miraculous. There's no way I could have predicted them. And so it's pointless to try. We have such a limited view. I mean, quite literally, we only see less than 1% of the visible spectrum. Okay. Our conscious mind takes in 50 bits of data per second, while our subconscious takes in 11 billion. Like, this is, or I'm sorry, 11 million. So, this is like a huge difference. And we don't see shit. We see such a small sliver of what's possible that it's just you shouldn't even try to consciously control that because there's so many other ways that could be so much easier and more fun and more aligned. But by trying to control how the money is going to come in, you kind of cut those off. So completely put out that whole step. And I want you instead to focus on the outcome, just the outcome, the end result that you want. And I know I've used this analogy before, but I'm going to use it again. It's the analogy of ordering something from Amazon. And you look like the other day, we were out of toothpaste and I didn't feel like running to the store. So I go on Amazon and what did I do? I searched up the exact toothpaste that we use. I added it to the cart, checked out, and then I forgot about it. I didn't think, okay, Amazon's going to get this order. And then their little robot in their warehouse is going to go and find the toothpaste and put it in a package and process the order. And then they're going to load it on a truck. And then the truck's going to bring it to my house. And I didn't think about any of that. All I knew was I needed toothpaste. I'm going to order it and it will get here. And that's kind of the mentality. I mean, not kind of, that is the mentality that you should have when manifesting because leave it up to the universe to figure out the method of delivery, of fulfilling your package, of having it show up on your doorstep. And you just focus on the thing that you want, the outcome that you want. And the more we separate ourselves from that by thinking about all the steps that have to take place for that to get to us, the more we're manifesting wanting it, the more we're manifesting that we are separate from this thing. So instead, you want to focus on the outcome as though you already have it, because then you're collapsing the timeline. You're not saying this thing is out of reach, this thing is separate from me. You're acting and living as though you already have it. And this is where, number one, it tricks the subconscious. So it like dispels all of these doubts and limiting beliefs and resistance that you might be feeling, but also you're not manifesting wanting it, you're manifesting that you already have it. Okay, so I'll get into some details of exactly how you can do this, and I think this is perfect if you can get your husband to do it as well. Great. And I realize that a lot of times that's not the case. They're not on board. They don't believe in manifestation. They think it's woo woo, whatever. Just ask him to humor you. Play along. because there is a lot of power when you put this energy from not just you, but from the person you're spending your life with, and you both have this cohesive goal that you can focus on. It gives it more power. I've seen the craziest things happen when my husband and I do a money goal together versus me doing it on my own. And the other thing is, just like anything else, whether you're going to the gym or, you're starting a business or you're having a baby, when you have someone there to support you, like emotionally, and just kind of like be like, I got your back, it really does something with removing the doubt. So, like for me, I have so many deep rooted money beliefs, and they do come up every time I reach a new level. They come back rearing their ugly head. But my husband, if he has the same goal as me, it's very easy for me to be like, you know what, you're right. Like, we can manifest this when there's someone else agreeing with it. Like, just having one other person, whether it's your spouse or whether you have a coach or a mentor or like a manifesting buddy, it's amazing what it could do just having one person being like, yeah, you can do this. Yes, this is happening. So if you can't get your husband on board, maybe you can get a friend or a coach or someone just to give you that little bit of assurance, because that little bit goes such a long way. So anyhow, what we do, my husband and I, is we come up with a number that we want to see in our bank account. So we started doing this when we moved to Florida. And believe it or not, it was actually my husband that suggested this. He was just like, I want to see our savings account hit $50,000. Like that feels like a good number to me. Like, let's do it. Like, let's get it to 50,000. Now, in his mind, he was thinking, I'm going to work all this overtime and like work really hard. In my mind, I was thinking like, I'm going to manifest the shit out of this goal. So even if it's just a goal and you don't mention manifesting with him, I still think it's important to have him on board because you guys are like sharing your life together, right? So we would come up with a specific number. There's also times where we would come up with a specific thing that we wanted to pay off or purchase. So, for example, like that first example was we wanted to reach 50,000 in our savings account. When we set that goal, we got there really I want to say it was like 2 months or something. We got there so quickly. And I think it's just because we both were focusing on it and had set a very crystal clear goal for the first time. Then moving forward, one day, like kind of out of the blue, my husband was just like, I want to pay off the pool because we had taken out a loan for the pool. And I was completely fine with the loan because I had manifested different incomes that paid for that, no problem. But he was like, you know what? I just don't like the feeling of having this debt, and let's pay it off. Like, I want it paid off by the summer. And so we kept focusing on that specific number and just talking about it in a delusional way. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that $24,000 just landed in our bank account. That's so wild. And like, doesn't it feel so good having the pool paid off and not having to deal with these payments every month? And we both just talked about it as though it was done. And this is what I mean about manifesting wanting it versus manifesting already having it. It's normal to want to say, I want an extra $10,000 a month. I want $200,000 this year. It would be nice to have. All of those things are just reaffirming that you don't have it right now. And when you start talking delusionally, like it feels so amazing to have X amount in my bank account. It feels so amazing that I've been able to pay off my pool, my car, my house, whatever. It collapses the timeline. And now you're aligning with that reality instead of saying, I wish I could have that reality. You don't wish for it, don't want it, manifest it. And that means acting freaking delusional, right? So we did that with the pool. And very shortly after, we found out that my husband's employer had automatically enrolled him in a 401k. So basically, like he opted out of it the first year. And there's a whole story with that I'm not going to get into today, but he opted out of it. He didn't know that you have to opt out every single year. And so they started like putting just a small amount in automatically that he didn't even know about. And I don't even remember how it came to our attention, but it came to our attention and we checked it out. I think I was looking at my 401k stuff from when I was in corporate and was like, we need to just check, yours and see like, is your work doing anything, even though you're not opting in? And lo and behold, the total amount, I shit you not, was the amount we needed to pay on the pool, down to the dollar, the same exact amount, to the point where we were just like, are you freaking kidding me? It's so unbelievable. And it's like so miraculous. You can't really wrap your mind around it. But like having things like this happen over and over and over again, now it's like, hey, let's set a money goal. And he's like, yep, let's set it. So if you can just try this, even if it's with a small amount of money, and get your husband on board with it, and then you see these miraculous ways in which money will flow to you, it's a great starting point because then that's motivation for them to want to set a bigger goal with you and a bigger goal. So don't think about how it will come in. Just think of the end result, whatever that means. Maybe it's like when I wanted to leave my 9 to 5 job. I was miserable in my job. All I wanted to do was be home with my daughter. At that time, I didn't even know that we were going to have Amelia and Aiden. I just wanted to be home with Alexis. But I didn't want to be home and not have any spending money. Like I still wanted to go and get my Starbucks. At the time, I was like obsessed with Starbucks. I still wanted to be able to walk in Target and buy whatever the hell I wanted to buy and not have to worry, is there going to be enough in my account? I still wanted to drive the car that I wanted to drive and live in the house that I wanted to live. Like I virtually didn't want my lifestyle to change at all. And so a lot of times we can think like, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so we have to save, we have to cut back. Instead, focus on the lifestyle you want to live. And so for you, Liz, that sent this question, if you don't have a specific, maybe it's not like I need to manifest $10,000. It's more of like a consistent income every month so you can live the lifestyle you want to live. Start thinking about that lifestyle. And the most fun manifesting method that I have, and I have done this every single time I've done this, it works. Okay. It's astounding how well it works. And it's like so much fun. Start living, like spend a day or a couple days if you can, but just one day living as though you have that money. Okay. So maybe that means that if you had that money, you're going to wake up in the morning and take your kids to the zoo and you're going to stop and get breakfast on the way and like you don't have to worry about money and then you're going to go to the store and like buy, whatever. Just think of like what you would do if you had the amount of money you want. How would your life be different? What kinds of things would you be doing in your day to day? How would your morning routine be different? How would the day be different? And start doing that now, like whenever you can, if possible. So I'll give you a couple examples. Example number one, when I was in my 9 to 5 job and I was so stressed. I mean, like panic attack, high anxiety, stress. I was just over it. And I started seeing people online who had these online businesses and were making money, but they got to like lounge in yoga pants every day and just whatever. So what I would do is throughout the day, I was in sales, so I was out on the road. Any day that I didn't have a lunch meeting, I would go and do something that would represent the lifestyle I wanted to live. So, for example, I would go sit in Starbucks with my laptop and I would like work on my business. Even though I didn't have a business at the time, like I would pretend like I'm this entrepreneur and I can just go lounge around at Starbucks and drink a coffee and like work on my laptop. I would go sometimes just like walk around the mall or shopping. Sometimes I would go visit my daughter at school and surprise her for lunch. Those are all things I would do if I didn't have my 9 to 5 job. And so I started implementing those things. And when I would implement those things, I would have the mindset of a delusional person thinking, this is my life. Like I would just bullshit myself. This is my life. I'm so lucky I get to do this now. I started waking up early so that I could have the morning routine that I would have if I didn't have a job to go to. And even though it wasn't the easiest thing waking up earlier every day, it did something. It started shifting my identity, and I started becoming the person who is this online entrepreneur, even though for the rest of the day, I was a 9 to 5 worker. But it started shifting my mindset, shifting my identity, and things started falling into place. So that's one way you can do it is implementing this into your daily lifestyle, whatever way that could be. Another way, and this is a little more fun, a little more drastic, is take like a whole weekend or just even a day. And if you can, again, like with your husband or your mom friends or whatever, your kids, go and find a place that represents the next level that you want to manifest. So if you had this income that you want to manifest, what would represent that? Would that be a day at a 5-star resort on the beach? Would that be going shopping in the luxury side of town? Would that be like, what does that represent? You know, we usually have kind of a vision of like the lifestyle we desire with more money. So figure out like, where is a place or what is something I could do that would represent that where I could just have fun for a day or a weekend. And again, if you do this like with your husband, it just makes it more fun and do that. So, for example, my husband and I would find a 5-star hotel on the beach and just get a room for one night. And what's so awesome is one of the times we did this, I'm telling my husband this idea, right? And he texts me, he's at work, and he's like, okay, like mark your calendar because we're going. And since we booked it last minute, I got this crazy deal. And I was like, well, what's the deal? He's like, you'll see. He freaking booked the presidential suite, which I didn't even know what that meant. But we get to this hotel and we had like the whole floor basically. Like you step out and there is a balcony covering the whole hotel that was just ours. And this is like the balcony that like people take pictures of on this hotel. It's like this very prestigious hotel. And he got it for dirt cheap because he booked it just a couple of days before we went and no one had booked it. And so they want, they'd rather have something than nothing. So they will lower the rates. So we got this like amazing presidential suite and we sat out there on that balcony and we ordered room service and had like the robes, the white robes from the hotel room. And we just went crazy talking about all the money we were manifesting and like how we get to come here all the time and like live this lifestyle. And that was when I was pregnant with Amelia and still in my corporate job. And I feel like when we did that, we quantum shifted in so many ways. Like we jumped from 0 to 10 just from that one night stay at this luxurious hotel. So something like that. It might not be a hotel for you. Maybe it's something different. It doesn't have to be far from home, but whatever it is, like if you can go there and fully live in character, it does something. It bypasses every limiting belief you can think of because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. And so if you're acting as though this is your life now, your subconscious doesn't know the difference. And if it thinks this is really your life now, then why would it need to resist that? Why would the limiting beliefs would be irrelevant, right? Because it believes it's already happened. So it really does like collapse timelines and it helps you not just overcome subconscious shifts, but quantum shifting, like shifting into the reality of having it because you've just created it in the energetic realm. So now it can take shape in the physical realm. So that's my example of what you can do to manifest more money. Just to recap, like stop thinking my husband has to get it through his job because he's bringing in the paycheck, or I need to get a job and like can't be a stay-at-home mom anymore. throw all that out the window. Just focus on the end result. What is this doing for you and your family? How would your life be different? And start tapping into that now and get creative in any way that you can. You'll be amazed at the different ways money will show up. And that's the other thing. Money will show up, and it'll show up sometimes not in one way, sometimes not even in two ways. It could show up in three or four ways. That has happened before to me, where you just open it up to infinite possibilities and like multiple things happen where you're manifesting this goal in, three, four, five different ways. Now let's get into the next part of the question, which I completely understand, which is like, how do you keep your vibe high and meditate or do the things that you want to do with your manifestation practice when you have little kids? Okay. For anyone that doesn't have little kids, let me just tell you, from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, there's no quiet time. Okay. Like, unless they're napping, it's insane. I have a really good mic, but even so, you might be able to hear them in the background. They're getting the dog wound up. The dog's been barking for like this whole podcast episode. Hopefully, the mic is good enough where it cancels it out, but this is life, and you just have to learn how to make it work. So, this was really important to me, and knowing that I want to be here. Like, I want to be a hands on mom. I don't want a stranger to raise my kids, but I know me and like I have to have something of my own. That was what my husband said when I first told him I wanted to leave my corporate job. He's like, "You're going to be so unhappy because you need something. Like you're like, I'm very action driven, I guess. Like I like to have something of my own." And so it was really important to me to have a business that I'm passionate about, but also be a very hands on mom. And so there's a lot of concessions you have to make in order to make it work, but it's totally doable. Okay. So the first thing that I would say is, Liz, I completely understand where you're coming from. I lose my shit probably 3 times a day. Like there are so many moments where you just want to scream because you want to sit down and meditate, or like you have something you have to do and somebody falls and bumps their head, which just happened to my son right before I started recording, or someone's throwing a temper tantrum, or like whatever, and you just want to like lose your shit and you just think, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna freaking lose my mind. So I'm just going to give some tips of what works really well for me. Number one, I have found that just stepping outside, nature will naturally balance out your mood. So whenever I'm feeling like I want to yell and I'm feeling like just overwhelmed, I step outside barefoot if possible, like in the grass. But even when that's not possible, I will throw the kids in the stroller and go for a walk outside. And what I call this time is my walking meditation. So sitting in a room where it's peacefully quiet just is not happening at this phase in my life, which is fine because that never really worked well for me anyhow. But what does work well is putting the kids in the stroller and going outside for walks. So number one, it's calming me down, but it's also calming them down because nature just has that effect. It's like a natural regulator, nervous system regulator. And then what I would notice is I would just start walking, and about 5, 10 minutes into the walk, it was like a channel would just open. Like I would like fine tune my antenna, and I would just feel like I had this instant connection to whatever, like this energy, this wisdom. And I would get so many downloads. So like if I'm have a question on my mind and I'm just cannot make up my mind, or I don't know the answer, I'll go for a walk and within 10 minutes I will have the answer, or I will have my mind made up. If I need ideas for my business, I will go for a walk and I will have a list of ideas that I wrote down on my phone that came to me in a 10-minute walk that I couldn't think of for the past week. It does something. And to me, that is like a walking meditation. And you can incorporate your kids with this. So what I noticed for myself to calm my nervous system and to get into this state I did this thing where it was like, what can I see? What can I smell? What can I feel? What can I taste? And like submerging your senses into it. And so I started doing this with my kids. I'd be like, okay, what can we see? Like, what's the first animal we see? Or what's the first flower we see? And like, okay, what do you smell? What does it smell like right now? And it gets them engaged in it as well. And it's become this fun game for them now where, you know, they want to see who's going to be the first one to spot the first, bird or flower or whatever. But your kids learn by watching you, by observing you, especially at that age. Before they're in school, before really like, I'd say first grade, they are learning by just observing and absorbing everything that's in their environment. They're in theta brainwave state, so they're like little walking subconsciouses, and they're just taking in everything. So when they see mom doing something like this, going for a walk outside, tuning into her senses, and they start doing it, that's something that's going to carry with them for the rest of their life. Like you're not telling them, "Hey, you should go outside and do a walking meditation. You should go outside and, look and feel and sense." You're immersing them in it. And that is going to stick with them. That is going to be a skill now that they have for the rest of their life because it's ingrained in their core belief system. If they see, hey, every day my mom sits down and journals or meditates or does these breathing exercises, number one, they're going to want to do it too eventually. They're going to start mimicking you. And again, you're teaching them. You're teaching them by being that version of yourself. So my kids, every day they see me work out. Every day they'll see me I do like stretches, like yoga in the morning, some deep breathing. And I never say like, okay, sit down. I'm going to teach you how to do breath work, or I'm going to teach you how to do yoga or anything like that. But they just observe. And now all the time they will just start doing stuff. Like I'll see Aiden picking up a weight. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just getting my workout in. Or like Amelia, all the time, this girl does this. She'll sit down and she'll do these deep breathing, like take 4 deep breaths, and then she'll get her brother to join in. And she'll say, like, oh, I'm meditating, or oh, I was a little angry, so I just needed to take some deep breaths. And so it's so cute because this isn't anything I like tried pushing on them or really even thought they were picking up on, because you just think like, oh, they're so young, like they don't understand what I'm doing. But by watching me do that, they are learning how to do that at such a young age. And I think back to when I was a child, if I would have known how to do breath work or meditate or walking meditation, I mean, I can't even imagine all the ways in which that would help me. So just keep that in mind too, that as a mom, you don't have to go lock yourself in a closet to meditate. Like, start doing these things around your kids. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be like before you had kids where you could sit down and do an hour-long meditation with no interruption. But you find ways to make it work. You incorporate them. You go outside and do a walking meditation. You go outside barefoot. Like you figure out ways to calm your nervous system. And in you doing that for yourself, you're giving your kids the biggest gift of all, because they're having a calm, regulated mom, but they're learning how to do that for themselves as well. And so don't feel bad when you're ready to lose your shit. Like I said, it happens to me all the time, but you just learn on how to regulate it and make it work with your busy, hectic lifestyle. Also, whatever it is that's really important to you, whether it's meditating, starting a business, I do think it's important for parents to have some time away from their kids. So if that means dropping them off at, like, we used to have a membership at a gym that had like a little daycare area where they would just hang out for like an hour. Or like if you have, a neighbor or a mommy's helper, kid in the neighborhood that can just, even if you're in the house in another room, they can just hang out with the kids for like an hour. I think it's really important to have that time so that you don't like lose your mind, because it's very easy to feel like you're going to lose your mind, to start losing your identity as a mom. And, it's perfectly okay to ask for help and support and take some time for yourself. So maybe that could be a goal as well, just having one day where you take an hour or so for yourself where you can focus on like some of these self-care things that you feel like are maybe hurting your overall vibration. And so the last thing I want to touch on is when I left the corporate world and I knew I wanted to raise my kids, I did not want to put them in daycare. I made the decision in my mind that I would figure out a way to do a business online while being a stay-at-home mom. I didn't want to sacrifice income to be a stay-at-home mom, and I didn't want to, sacrifice being a stay-at-home mom in order to run a business. So I decided I was going to do it both. And I knew that if I made that decision, things would start to fall into play. Like I would start figuring out ways in which this could happen. And I did, and it happened through trial and error. But basically, I took this passion of the law of attraction and turned it into a business that has created consistent income ever since, to where I knew I would never have to go back to my day job, and that if I needed more income one month, well, then I can launch something or just be a little more active with selling. But basically, everything runs on autopilot. So I just check in, a few hours a week to do things like this podcast episode. But other than that, everything is really running on autopilot thanks to all of the technology we have available. So if that's something you're interested in, I have a program that I don't talk about very often, but I don't know why I don't talk about it very often because it's so good. And it's such a easy starting point for anybody who wants to be home with their kids, or even if you're not a mom, you want to leave your day job or you want to start making money online and you don't know where to begin. This program is such a good starting point because I teach you how to set everything up. I pretty much just give you like my system, my strategy, so you can duplicate it and make your first six figures in your first year on autopilot. And the whole first part of this course goes over the mindset that you have to get there, because it's not a lack of technology or resources to make it happen. It's a lack of your belief that it's possible. So, the reason why most people are not succeeding in doing this is because they're trying to do it on their own and learn from scratch, and they don't have the belief. Their mind starts messing with them and they give up far too soon. So, this program goes so in depth first before anything else on mindset. Because if you have the mindset that you can be a stay at home mom and you can make a full time income, or you can leave your job and you can work from your phone and your laptop, then you will be able to do that as long as you have the mindset first. The mindset always has to come first. So that's the first half of the program. And then the second half is like giving you my system to duplicate. So if you're interested in that, I'll link it in the show notes. You can also go to the lawofattractiontribe.com/freedom dash tribe. So again, that's the lawofattractiontribe.com/freedom dash tribe. And I will link all that in the show notes, and keep sending me your questions. I want to create episodes that you want to listen to. I want to answer the questions that you have on your mind. So message me on Instagram at Law of Attraction Tribe and let me know what the next episode should be, and I'll create it. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.